I welcome you to my channel. Subscribe and listen to my new stories every day. My marriage to Claire had always been, to the outside world, the picture of stability. We had 2 great kids, a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood, and a life that most people envied. After 15 years together, I thought I had everything figured out. My job was going well, our kids were doing great in school, and Claire, with her marketing career, was a partner I could trust implicitly. I'd never imagined that trust would soon be shattered. It started slowly. Claire became distant in ways that I couldn't quite put my finger on. At first, it was small things. She'd stay late at work more often, claiming it was crunch time for a big project. Then, she began spending more time on her phone, and I noticed her smile dimmed when she was around me. There were the late-night texts that she'd glance at but not respond to while I was in the room. I shrugged it off, blaming her workload, but the feeling of unease gnawed at me. I didn't want to be one of those paranoid husbands who doubted their wives for no reason. Claire had always been dedicated to her work, and I knew how demanding her job could be. But something was different. It wasn't just the long hours. It was the way she would absent-mindedly stroke her phone, keeping it close at all times, as if she were guarding it. The way she smiled at her screen, a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. The moment that truly set me on edge happened one Friday evening, just as we were about to leave for a family dinner at my parents' place. We were running late, and the kids were already in the car. Claire had been ready to go for a while but suddenly rushed back inside, claiming she had forgotten her phone. I didn't think much of it, until she sprinted out of the house like a woman on a mission. I was stunned, watching her bolt out the front door with such urgency, as if the world would collapse if she didn't retrieve her phone immediately. That was when the first seed of suspicion took root. Why was she acting so strange? A forgotten phone shouldn't have caused such panic. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel as Claire returned, breathless and holding her phone like it was the most precious thing in the world. She didn't explain why she had run like that, and I didn't ask. But I couldn't shake the image of her desperate dash for her phone. That night, I lay awake, my mind spinning in all directions. Was she hiding something from me? My gut told me something was wrong, but I wasn't the kind of man to jump to conclusions. I had no proof, only a nagging suspicion, and I wasn't ready to turn my world upside down based on a hunch. So, I decided to observe, to stay calm, and to wait. The following week, I tried to brush off my doubts. I went about my day as usual, working my job in IT, shuttling the kids to soccer practice, and pretending everything was fine. But I paid closer attention to Claire. I watched her more carefully when she came home late from work, her hair slightly tousled and a faint smile playing on her lips. She would kiss me on the cheek, but there was a distance in her eyes, as if she were a million miles away. Every time her phone buzzed, she'd glance at it and then tuck it away, avoiding any conversation about who was texting. Her phone was always on silent now, no more cheerful pings or ringtones. When she went to bed, she'd place it face down on her nightstand, as if to make sure I couldn't see any notifications. And the more she tried to hide it, the more my mind started to race. One night, after she'd gone to bed early, I found myself alone in the kitchen, sitting with a cold beer and my own restless thoughts. I couldn't shake the idea that something was wrong. I wanted to believe that Claire was just stressed, that work was overwhelming her, but I knew there was more to it. I opened her phone bill the next day. It was a long shot, but I needed to know if there was anything unusual. I scrolled through the list of calls and texts, my heart pounding with every number I didn't recognize. And then I saw it, a number with a Virginia area code, popping up again and again. Late-night calls, frequent texts, all to the same number. A number I didn't recognize. My stomach turned. Claire had no business in Virginia, and she hadn't mentioned any new clients from that area. My pulse quickened as I scrolled further. This number had been appearing on her bill for months. The next few days were a blur of suspicion and paranoia. I didn't confront her right away, I wasn't ready for that. Instead, I played the role of the oblivious husband, all the while keeping a close eye on her behavior. I wanted to believe that there was a reasonable explanation, but deep down, I knew what was happening. Claire was hiding something, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. I started researching the number. It led me to a dead end, a VoIP number, which meant it could be used to hide someone's real identity. That only made me more suspicious. Whoever Claire was talking to didn't want to be found. My mind went into overdrive, imagining the worst. The final straw came when she announced she had to go on a weekend business trip. She was vague about the details, just said it was a conference, and that she'd be gone for a few days. My heart sank as I watched her pack, smiling as if nothing was wrong. I played along, wishing her good luck and telling her I'd hold down the fort at home. But I knew. I knew exactly where she was going, and it wasn't to any business conference. I had no intention of letting this slide. While Claire was packing her bags, I was planning something far more sinister. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, not after everything we'd built together. If she was going to betray me, I would make sure she paid for it. I hired a private investigator the next day, determined to get the evidence I needed. I wanted cold, hard proof, photos, timestamps, locations. Something that would leave no room for doubt. Something that would give me the upper hand when the time came to confront her. I wasn't just going to end this quietly. I was going to make sure she regretted every moment of her betrayal. As Claire left for her so-called business trip, I kissed her goodbye and watched her drive away. I knew she wouldn't be coming back the same way. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust, it was the beginning of the end. But this time, I was the one who was in control. The day Claire left for her business trip, I stood by the window, watching her car disappear down the street. A quiet fury brewed inside me, bubbling up with every passing second. My hands clenched into fists, but I forced myself to breathe, to stay calm. I needed to keep a clear head. The time for confronting her was coming, but not yet. I wasn't about to let my emotions drive this. I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, a slow burn of betrayal that couldn't be undone. With Claire gone, I went about setting my plan into motion. I called the private investigator I had hired, a guy named Rick who came highly recommended. He wasn't the typical suit and tie type you'd expect. Rick was rough around the edges, a former cop who had seen it all. He had the kind of grim experience that told you he didn't care about the details of your personal life, only about getting the job done. I gave him everything I had, the Virginia phone number, the dates Claire had mentioned her trips, and her current location for the weekend. Rick promised he'd have someone tail her, get pictures, and confirm whether or not she was meeting with someone else. His calm voice was reassuring, but it also drove home the reality of what I was doing. I was hiring someone to catch my wife in the act of cheating. That thought alone made me sick to my stomach, but there was no turning back. For the rest of the day, I kept myself busy with the kids. They didn't need to know anything was wrong, not yet. I took them to their soccer games, helped them with homework, and made their favorite meals like any other weekend. But beneath the surface, I was a man unraveling. Every text message Claire sent me from the conference felt like a punch in the gut. Her casual updates about how boring the workshops were, or how the hotel had a terrible view, made me want to smash my phone against the wall. By Saturday night, I hadn't heard anything from Rick. I knew he was on it, but the waiting was eating me alive. I spent hours pacing the living room after the kids had gone to bed, staring at my phone, willing it to buzz with news. Every minute that passed without a call felt like a lifetime. My mind raced with thoughts of what Claire might be doing, where she was, and who she was with. I pictured them together, laughing, sharing intimate moments that were supposed to belong to us. The betrayal cut deeper with every mental image I conjured. Finally, around midnight, the phone rang. I picked it up on the first ring, my pulse quickening. "She's with him," Rick said, his voice flat and businesslike. They're at a private Airbnb about an hour outside of the city. I've got photos. They've been there since yesterday. The air left my lungs as if I'd been punched in the stomach. I had known, of course I had, but hearing it confirmed still knocked the wind out of me. I gripped the phone tightly, fighting to keep my voice steady. Do you have proof? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I've got plenty, Rick replied. Photos of them checking in together, leaving together, going out for dinner. He's staying the night. There's no question about what's going on. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the flood of emotions rushing through me. Anger, sadness, disgust, they all swirled together in a storm that threatened to consume me. But I couldn't afford to lose control now. I had to stay focused. Send me everything, I said. I want all of it. You got it. I'll email the files over tonight, Rick said, his tone professional. Is there anything else you need? I paused, considering the weight of what I was about to do. No, that's it for now. Thanks, Rick. After hanging up, I sank into the couch, the silence of the house pressing in on me. My head was spinning, my heart pounding. The proof was on its way, and soon there would be no denying it. Claire was cheating on me. After 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, and a life built on trust, she had thrown it all away for someone else. The anger came in waves, crashing over me in relentless surges. I wanted to scream, to punch a wall, to break something. But I knew that wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't take away the betrayal or make Claire come back to me. No, I needed to think strategically. Revenge wasn't just about catching her in the act, it was about making sure she paid for what she had done. The next day, after a sleepless night, I got the email from Rick. I stared at my computer screen for what felt like hours before opening the attachment. There they were, photos of Claire with a man I had never seen before, walking hand in hand down a quiet street, laughing as they shared dinner, entering the Airbnb together. My stomach churned as I clicked through the images, each one confirming what I already knew but wished wasn't true. The man was younger than me, taller, and looked like the kind of guy you'd see on a fitness magazine cover. Claire had always been into fitness, and now it seemed she had found someone who shared that interest. It was ironic, really. I had spent years supporting her passion, going on runs with her, encouraging her to pursue her goals, and this was how she repaid me. But this wasn't just about the affair. This was about everything, the lies, the deceit, the way she had smiled at me every day while carrying on with another man behind my back. I had given her my trust, and she had shattered it. Now, I was going to make sure she felt the weight of her actions. I spent the next few hours gathering my own evidence. I made copies of the emails I had found between her and Nick, printed out bank statements that showed charges for restaurants in cities she had never mentioned visiting, and compiled everything into a neat little folder. I wanted to be prepared when the time came to confront her. The kids were at school, and the house was quiet. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of evidence in front of me. My mind raced with thoughts of how I would break the news to Claire. Would I confront her in private, or should I wait until she got home and make a scene in front of the kids? I had always been a calm and collected man, but this situation tested every ounce of restraint I had. Finally, I settled on a plan. I would wait until she got home from her trip, confront her quietly, and give her a chance to explain herself. Not because I wanted to hear her excuses, but because I wanted to watch her squirm. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized she had been caught, when she knew there was no way out. That was the kind of revenge I wanted, the slow, torturous kind. Sunday night came, and with it, Claire's return. She walked into the house with a smile on her face, greeting the kids with hugs and kisses as if nothing had happened. I stayed in the background, watching her carefully. She didn't suspect a thing. After the kids had gone to bed, she turned to me, smiling. "How was your weekend?" she asked, her voice light and casual. I didn't smile back. I didn't even blink. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold and hard. Her smile faltered for a moment, but she recovered quickly. "Sure, what's up?" she asked, trying to sound nonchalant. I motioned to the kitchen table, where the folder of evidence sat waiting. Her eyes followed mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear cross her face. She knew. Claire sat across from me, her usual confident demeanor wavering as her eyes darted from the folder on the kitchen table back to me. The silence between us was thick, almost suffocating. She shifted in her seat, her lips parting as if she wanted to say something, but no words came. I had been waiting for this moment for what felt like an eternity, and now that it was here, I felt strangely calm, too calm, in fact. The anger that had been burning inside me for days was still there, but it was simmering now, controlled. I had the upper hand, and I intended to keep it. "What's this about?" Claire finally asked, her voice cracking slightly. She was trying to sound casual, but I could hear the tremor of fear underneath. She knew. I leaned forward, placing my hands flat on the table. I wanted her to feel the weight of my words. "You already know," I said, my voice low but steady. "Why don't you tell me?" She blinked, clearly startled by my directness. Her gaze flickered to the folder again, and I saw her take a deep breath. "I don't understand. Just tell me what's going on, Mark." I pushed the folder toward her, my movements slow and deliberate. "Open it." Claire hesitated for a moment before reaching out with trembling hands. She pulled the folder closer and opened it, her eyes scanning the pages. The moment she saw the photos, images of her and her lover laughing, walking hand in hand, entering the Airbnb together, her face went pale. She flipped through the evidence, each photo and document chipping away at the facade she had been wearing for months. When she finally looked up at me, there were tears in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. I had prepared myself for this. I had steeled myself against her tears, her excuses, her inevitable attempts to explain away the unforgivable. "How long has it been going on?" I asked, my voice cold. Claire opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. She swallowed hard, wiping at her eyes as if she could make the evidence in front of her disappear. But it was too late for that. "Answer me," I demanded. She flinched, clearly shaken by my tone. "Mark, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." Her voice was barely above a whisper, and her hands trembled as she placed the folder back on the table. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just—" "How long?" I repeated, cutting her off. I wasn't interested in her excuses. I wanted the truth, plain and simple. She lowered her gaze, her fingers nervously twisting together. "It's been a few months," she admitted, her voice small and broken. "It started a few months ago." "A few months," I repeated, more to myself than to her. All those late nights, the work trips, the unexplained absences, it had all started making sense weeks ago, but hearing her confirm it made it real in a way I hadn't been prepared for. I clenched my jaw, trying to contain the rising tide of fury threatening to spill over. "It was just a mistake," she continued, her words rushing out now, as if she could somehow explain it all away. "It didn't mean anything, Mark. I was lonely, and I wasn't thinking clearly. It was just a stupid, stupid mistake." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "A mistake? You've been sneaking around for months, lying to my face, and you call that a mistake?" I slammed my hand down on the table, making her jump. "Do you think I'm an idiot, Claire? You think I didn't notice the way you've been acting? The lies, the late nights, the phone calls with that guy." She winced, the mention of him hitting her like a physical blow. "Please, Mark, just let me explain. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I interrupted. "You did hurt me, Claire. You shattered everything we built together. Our marriage, our family, you threw it all away for what? For a fling. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't done. The dam I had been holding back for so long was finally breaking, and the words came spilling out, fueled by months of pent-up anger and betrayal. I trusted you. I believed in you. And you betrayed me. You betrayed our kids, Claire. Did you even think about them when you were sneaking off with him? Did you think about what this would do to our family? Her tears were flowing freely now, and she shook her head, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry, Mark. I wasn't thinking. I know I've messed up, but I love you. I do. We can work through this. Please, just give me a chance. We can fix this. I stood up abruptly, pushing my chair back with a sharp scrape. Her words, her tears, all felt hollow to me. You love me? I spat. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have lied to me for months. Do you even hear yourself right now? Claire sobbed harder, standing up and reaching out for me, but I stepped back, avoiding her touch. The last thing I wanted was her hands on me, not after everything I had seen, after everything I now knew. Mark, please, she begged, her voice cracking with desperation. I know I've hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, talk to someone. I'll do anything. Just don't give up on us. I stared at her, the woman I had spent 15 years building a life with, the mother of my children, and all I could feel was emptiness. The love we once shared was gone, replaced by a gaping hole where trust had once been. There was nothing left to save. You think we can fix this? I asked quietly, my voice hard and flat. You think a few therapy sessions are going to undo what you've done? You think I'm just going to forget all those nights you spent with him, all those lies you told me? Claire shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. No, I don't expect you to forget. But I'm begging you to forgive me. Please, Mark, I can't lose you. I can't lose our family. I clenched my fists, fighting to stay in control. Every fiber of my being wanted to scream, to rage at her, but I knew that wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't take away the betrayal, the hurt. It wouldn't bring back the trust that had been broken beyond repair. There's nothing left to fix, Claire, I said, my voice hollow. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. She collapsed into the chair, her body racked with sobs, but I couldn't feel anything for her anymore. The woman sitting across from me wasn't the woman I had married. That woman was gone. I'll be filing for divorce, I said, my tone flat, emotionless. And I'll be keeping the house. The kids will stay with me. Her head snapped up, her tear-streaked face a mask of shock and fear. What? Mark, no, you can't do this. Please. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I interrupted. I have everything I need to make sure this ends in my favor. She stared at me, the realization of what she had done finally sinking in. She had lost everything. And there was no going back. I turned away, walking toward the stairs. You can stay in the guest room tonight, I said coldly over my shoulder. In the morning, I want you out. Her sobs echoed through the house as I climbed the stairs, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. The life we had built was over, and I had no intention of letting her take any more from me than she already had. The next morning was eerily quiet. Claire hadn't said a word as she packed her things. The kids were still asleep, blissfully unaware that the life they knew was about to be ripped apart. I watched her from the kitchen as she moved through the house like a ghost, her shoulders hunched under the weight of her own guilt. There was no argument, no fight, just the silent understanding that this was the end. Part of me felt a sense of grim satisfaction. After all, I had won. I had the evidence, the upper hand, and now I was going to rebuild my life without her. But as the front door closed behind her, something inside me felt hollow, like a piece of me had been ripped away along with her. I had expected this moment to feel victorious, but instead, it felt like I had lost something, too. The kids woke up not long after, confused by the tension in the air. I sat them down and explained what had happened, or at least, a version of it they could understand. I told them that their mother was going to stay somewhere else for a while, and that things between us had changed. Emma, my eldest, looked at me with wide, questioning eyes, the kind that made my chest ache. Daniel, too young to fully grasp the situation, asked when Mom would be back. I didn't have the heart to tell them that she wasn't coming back. At least, not in the way they were used to. The hurt in their eyes was enough to make me second-guess everything, but I pushed those doubts down. Claire had betrayed me, and this was the price she would pay. I would protect my children from her mistakes. The first few weeks after Claire moved out were chaotic. Lawyers were involved, meetings were scheduled, and the divorce process began in full swing. I threw myself into the routine of parenting and work, trying to ignore the growing emptiness inside me. My friends and family rallied around, offering their support, praising me for being strong, for standing my ground. I told them I was fine. I told myself I was fine. But as the days turned into weeks, something inside me began to shift. At night, when the house was quiet and the kids were asleep, I found myself replaying everything in my head. The betrayal. The confrontation. The look on Claire's face when I told her I wanted a divorce. I thought that seeing her break would be enough, that it would give me closure. But instead, it haunted me. I tried to push it away. I tried to focus on the kids, on building a new life without her. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I had been so consumed with revenge, so focused on making her pay for what she had done, that I hadn't stopped to consider the full weight of what that revenge would cost me. It came to a head one rainy afternoon, about 2 months after she had left. I was in the middle of helping Emma with her homework when I got a call from Claire's sister, Jenna. We hadn't spoken since the divorce process had begun, and I could hear the strain in her voice when she spoke. "Mark, I don't know how to say this," she began, her voice thick with emotion. My stomach tightened. "What is it, Jenna? What's going on?" There was a long pause before she answered, and when she did, her words hit me like a freight train. "It's Claire. She's in the hospital. She tried to take her own life." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind went blank, the room spinning around me. "What?" I whispered, barely able to get the word out. "She left a note," Jenna continued, her voice cracking. She said she couldn't live with the guilt. She felt like she lost everything, Mark. Everything. The world fell out from under me. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. I had wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done, but this wasn't what I had wanted. I never wanted it to go this far. Is she going to be okay?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They're doing everything they can," Jenna replied. "But it's bad, Mark. Really bad." I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. I didn't know what to do, what to think. I had been so focused on punishing Claire, on making her pay for her betrayal, that I hadn't seen how deeply it had affected her. I had wanted revenge, but now, all I felt was a crushing sense of guilt. What had I done? Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and rushed to the hospital. The drive there was a blur, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. I couldn't stop picturing Claire, lying in that hospital bed, broken and alone. She had made terrible choices, but she was still the mother of my children. She was still someone I had loved for 15 years. And now she might not even survive. When I arrived at the hospital, Jenna was waiting for me in the hallway outside Claire's room. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. She didn't say anything, just nodded toward the door. I hesitated for a moment, then walked inside. Claire was lying in the bed, her skin pale against the white sheets. There were tubes and machines everywhere, beeping softly in the background. I stood frozen at the doorway, staring at her, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. This was the woman I had once loved, the woman who had betrayed me, and now the woman who had been broken by the weight of it all. I sat down in the chair beside her, my mind racing, my heart aching in a way I hadn't expected. She was asleep, or maybe unconscious. I didn't know. But as I sat there, watching her breathe, I realized that I had been wrong. I had thought that revenge would heal me, that it would make everything better. But it hadn't. All it had done was destroy us both. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Claire." I didn't know if she could hear me, but I said it anyway. I had been so blinded by my own pain, by my need to punish her, that I hadn't seen how broken she had become. I had wanted her to suffer, and now she had. More than I ever imagined. The hours passed in silence. I stayed by her side, watching the rise and fall of her chest, feeling the weight of my own guilt pressing down on me. I had won the battle, but in the end, I had lost so much more. When the doctors finally came in, their faces told me everything I needed to know. Claire didn't make it. And just like that, the woman I had spent 15 years with was gone, and I was left with the crushing realization that my revenge had cost me everything. I had wanted her to feel my pain, but now I was the one left with it.